So I've heard and read so much about Shadow of Mordor, and finally getting to play it, I see what everybody's talking about. Like, and I'm really excited about just the gameplay itself. This is definitely not Assassin's Creed. Like, you get in there and you realize this is a completely different game. But the Nemesis system and finally getting a handle around this really weird, very hard to explain system.
Oh, it's so hard to explain. I feel like I need cards to lay out on a table, and so I can like draw pieces of string to each one in order to like explain how it works, because it's almost a collectible card game with like this meta thing going on.
Collectible card game with orcs that you can pit against each other and that will fight for you, and
absolutely,
it's really cool. And they just gave a presentation, which is kind of the video that we saw so far. My eyes glazed over.
Yeah.
I fell asleep for a very small amount of time because it was really boring just listening to it. But once I finally got in there, and they're like, all right, so you need to go, and here's an orc, and you're gonna go do something against him. Like, whatever, you see his weaknesses and his strengths, you need to go fight him. I'm like, all right, fine, I'll figure it out just by fighting him. But then after you fight him, you basically have a choice. Like, if you grab them, you can use them to your benefit and have them against other people.
They become bonded to you, and you dominate them with your like ring wraith power. But that's not the end of it, because it's not just they fight for you in that moment. They actually, on the chessboard, you can tell them to do stuff. So we have to explain, there's different ranks.
Yeah, at the very top you have the war chiefs.
There's war chiefs, and then there's just like captains or whatever.
And the captains are also different levels. Like at the top you have the high level captains, and at the bottom you have your lowest level guys.
They're also connected. There's bodyguards of the war chiefs.
Yeah, so some of the war chief are basically friends. They are working together with some of those captains.
Yeah.
But some of the captains are also antagonists with one another.
Yeah, so it's all interconnected in like these really systemic ways. And what's cool is I decided, okay, this war chief is my end game, but to get to him, I need to go through this bodyguard because that'll piss him off. That was one of his attributes.
There's so many attributes. Are very powerful. Like, it's from where we were at. I mean, we're basically jumping in near the end of the game, but we're still not quite powerful enough to just go in and kick a war chief's ass.
Not even close. So I targeted one of the lower dudes, and being new to the game, totally got annihilated. But what that did, I was basically feeding him. He leveled up. And then he killed another guy and like ranked up in the chessboard, if you will. And then I was like, well, of course I'm gonna try and revenge him, because it like kind of gives you that prompt. It's like, revenge. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. And then you do it, and of course I still sucked, so I just kept feeding him. And his power level went higher than like anything on the board.
But that brings other peons. So he'll go and kill another captain. That brings other peons in that replace the captain that was killed.
Oh yeah, that too. And so eventually what I had to do to exact my revenge was bond a bunch of the underlings and normal
when you bond
guys.
Them, like, you're basically getting them to fight for you.
Yeah, it's like mind control. And so what ended up happening is I just had like an army of dudes go after him for me, and they just leveled him instantly, which was great. And then all of a sudden, like, he was gone, and by having him level up, he actually dropped a way more powerful rune, which gave me like a 20% chance to recover the elf arrows, which is like a whole nother fucking thing we haven't even discussed, like the wraith elf arrow system and all that shit. It's like there's so many systems, and they all play together so nicely.
Yeah, whenever you're fighting against one of these guys, if you kill them, if you kill them in different ways, you get different items that will power up the weapons that you have.
Yeah,
which is a whole other system on top of itself. But the captains, the way that they're connected, so you have the captains who are bodyguards of one another. You want to kill the bodyguards first, or else you're just going to have a hard time killing that chieftain, because he's going to have a lot of friends. But if you have a captain that you go to fight against, and he is being antagonized by another captain, you see a red line that connects them. When you go to fight them, that actually starts a whole other story thing, where this captain will come in and you'll see a cutscene, and there's a whole different interaction and interplay. And sometimes you can just sit back and watch, and they'll fight each other, and then you can take out the weaker one. There was one really cool one that I saw where the captain, one of them was a traitor, and he basically had subdued the earlier captain, put him down on the ground, and was going to kill him.
Oh, they were going to do the execution.
They were going to execute him. So I pulled out my bow and arrow, and I executed him for him.
Oh, wow.
He still took the credit for it. But then I was able to go in and kill that second captain.
Oh man, I was able to have one of my like lieutenants or whatever like become under him and be his bodyguard after helping him through some of these trials, like these mini missions that you go on. And so eventually I had an inside man. So when I went, and in order to like actually, this is like a whole nother system too. In order to activate the fight missions against those warlords, you have to do like a crazy side mission, where this one was kill 20 normal Urukai orcs without taking any damage at all, which was really freaking hard.
And then that summons
And then
him.
that summons him. But once you do that, you can re-summon him to get revenge if you fail the first time. But basically, I had a bodyguard, and then he came in, and the bodyguard helped me kill him. Building on that, my bodyguard became the chieftain, or the warlord. I'm messing up all these terms, but
There's
basically
a lot of terms,
the head
yeah.
guy. And then so what I did is I pitted him against another head guy, and ended up winning that battle. But instead of killing the guy the warlord that fell in that battle, I bonded him. But then what I decided to do is I had this ability where anybody that's bonded to me, I just like, it's like, and their heads popped off. It's like disconnecting them from the Matrix. Not like this. Boom. And they all died. And then I got like 3 different runes, super powerful runes.
You can use them to fight against other guys. You can use them to also gain intel so that you can figure out what people's weaknesses are. So like if you're having trouble against one chieftain and you figure out, oh, he's actually really weak against ranged weapons, but is invulnerable to melee, all you have to do is, like, now that you know his weakness, go up, just pull out some arrows, and as long as you take him out from afar, it makes that battle so much easier.
It's crazy how inspired these systems are and how much they play off of one another. I haven't seen an action game that does this.
And it's kind of like
so
an
unique.
in-game, because
it must be, yeah.
It does tie into the main game itself, and I think there are some instances where you will have to fight against these captains and chieftains and get them on your side, or at least move them out of the way. But it's in a way separate from the main story, and it doesn't directly affect the main story. It's kind of like its own set of side stories and side missions that you can go on and explore and power up your weapons doing without affecting the main quest, the main story. So it's like, it's something that adds replayability in a lot of ways, because when you fight these battles, it's different every time. Even when what we saw, where we're playing in the same position in the game, the people that we would meet, these chieftains that we would come up against, were completely different. And the way that they interact with one another, the way that they power up, was completely original for both of our games.
It sounds, I'm sure we did like a horrible job of
It
summarizing
sounds
this,
really
but
complicated.
it's all about the anecdotal stories that we're just like talking about, because that's what's so freaking cool about how the systems build on each other. It's just
And it
how
is
you
complicated.
you set things in motion and then see what happens.
But it's easy to understand once you get into it. Like, it sounds like this really complex system, and it is complex because of the way that it interacts and the different things that you can do. But once you actually sit in there and get into it, you're like, actually, this is really simple. I understand what's going on, and I know how to affect this. I'm going to kick that war chief's ass.
Yeah. And that's not even to mention how cool the combat is. That's a whole nother video.
I know. Oh, God, I want to play this game so much.